Okay, it's time to cover the big topic. The biggest topic there seems to be here is the one that many people have asked me to cover because they don't know, but they really want to know if Stephen McCullagh did kill Natalie McNally. Why did he do it? What's the motive? And I need to preface this and let you know that everything I'm going to say in this video is not my opinion. What I'm giving here is the opinion of the Pubic Prosecution Service. Okay, I don't know how things work in other countries, but here, these sorts of cases are prosecuted by the Pubic Prosecution Service. And this information where they revealed the motive was when Stephen was appealing for bail, trying to get out of prison because he was arrested in January 31st and then he was charged on February 2nd. That means at that point he goes to prison, okay? And then he tries to get out on bail. I can't remember if there were 2 or 3 hearings, court hearings. There were definitely at least 2, and then during those hearings a lot of new information came to light now, including the motive. And you can understand that it's in the prosecution's best interests to appeal to the judge to make sure that Stephen stays in prison until the trial. So that's why they released this information. They were telling the judge, basically, here's what we have on him, here's why we think he's guilty, and here is why you need to keep him in prison. So that's what caused them to release all this information. And of course, part of that would be to establish a motive. Because if they can convince the judge that this guy had a really good reason to want to kill her, that's going to convince the judge that he should not be released. He should stay in prison until the trial, okay? So that's where all of this comes from. It's not me personally. I'm not giving my opinion. It is the opinion after a lot of detective work. And, well, let's get into it. So some people have speculated that perhaps he didn't want to be a father and he had requested an abortion. She didn't want to have an abortion, and now he thinks the only thing that he can do is kill her. He wants to continue on his lifestyle of just, he worked part-time and then he makes his Doctor Who videos, and he didn't want the responsibility of being a father. That is not true. That's not what it was. There's no evidence that that's what it was. In fact, there's evidence to the contrary, because Natalie was 15 weeks pregnant, so there would have been one scan at the 12-week mark, and they were both there. And in fact, Stephen filmed it on his phone, and I know that because the rally that they held in Lurgan Park for Natalie after her murder, they played that footage of them at the 12-week scan, and it certainly didn't seem like a guy who didn't want the child. Anyway, the Pubic Prosecution Service is certainly not going with that theory. There's no evidence for it, but there is evidence for something completely different. Okay, so I believe this was the second bail hearing in court. The PPS is convincing the judge not to let him out on bail, and they provide the following motive. Natalie had been in contact with her ex-boyfriend, and those text messages were of a sexual nature. They believe that Stephen had found those text messages, and of course he was jealous. He was enraged, especially at a time when she's pregnant with his child, apparently. Maybe, we don't know if it's his child for sure. But it's even worse than that. This woman speaking in this article, this is the Pubic Prosecution Service. She says, the prosecution suggests sexualized contact with this individual, that's her ex-boyfriend, and indeed others, over a period of time is the catalyst for what occurred to Miss McNally. So, note that she says, and indeed others. Now, others implies two or more, in addition to the ex-boyfriend. So you're talking about sexualized messages to at least 3 people over a period of time. Now it says here, if you look above that, it says that Natalie had been in contact with her former boyfriend on December 15th and 16th. Now, of course, she was murdered on the 18th. That was not the first time. They're not saying that was the first time that Stephen had become aware of those messages. In fact, I can tell you that Stephen had the password to her phone from at least November. And therefore, he would have known, let's say at least 1 month before she was murdered, he would have known that this contact was going on. Okay. She in fact stayed over at his house the night prior to the murder, so we're talking December 17th, and her phone was checked all through the night 9 times during that night. And they believe, of course, that was Stephen not sleeping, but in fact checking her phone to check for messages from the ex-boyfriend or others. Now, we don't know exactly what those messages were. Were they just text, pictures? Did they include, trying to meet up with these people? Because if you're reading these messages, you could, if someone has met someone else, because they will refer to, oh, we met last Saturday, or do you want to come round on Wednesday? So the extent of these messages, we don't know. We know they were, for sure, sexual in nature. So this is an infidelity case. For me, even if it doesn't extend beyond text messages, I think if you're in a committed relationship, especially if you're pregnant, to text someone else in a sexual manner is in itself cheating. So this is an infidelity case, and it's a jealousy case. And I guess Stephen felt he must have been so angry that he made a terrible, terrible decision that it's ruined his life, it's ruined Natalie's life, and the impact that it's had on Natalie's family will last for the rest of their life. So, by the way, none of this, no matter what she did, no one in their right mind believes she deserved to die for that. So that's certainly not the case. But it was the motive. And I guess, my personal opinion, if this is all true, Stephen should have just dumped her. I wouldn't stick around. I would dump her. I would also certainly demand a DNA test once the child is born, because at that point, if I see these messages, I don't know if she's being faithful. Well, I know she's not being faithful, but I don't know if the child's mine or not. So you have to get into Stephen's head here when he sees this. Not only does he know he's been cheated on, he has no idea whether this child is his or not. Is it possible that even Natalie didn't know whether the child was his or not, but she was making him believe? I don't know. That's pure speculation. But certainly Stephen can't have known. And I think that's what drove him over the edge. Now, let's just comment on the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, because the infidelity might not have extended beyond text messages. So the best case scenario is Natalie was sexually texting 3 other people, but that was it. There was no physical contact, and the child was Stephen's. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Natalie was not just texting 3 or more people, but actively meeting and engaging in sexual relations with 3 or more people, and the child was also on top of that not Stephen's, but she was pretending that it was, or maybe she did or didn't know herself. That's the worst case scenario, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. But we don't know. There's no point in speculating about this. We'll not know until September of 2024, the exact level of the infidelity here. But all we can say is that someone thought that whatever level it was enough to go and commit murder, which was not just dumb, but evil, and a stupid thing to do. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of what's going to happen in the next video. Whoever the murderer was, their mission was not just, it wasn't just a single mission. This person was trying to accomplish two things. There were two goals here. The other goal, one was obviously to murder Natalie and the child. There was a second goal, a second mission. I'm going to tell you all about that in the next video. If you want to know, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon, so you'll be the first to know. As soon as I upload it, I'll reveal everything. So until next time, slán a bhaile.